Hey all, this is Chase from the All Blue Crew, and we're looking at match number 3 of my Red Purple Law run from Saturday morning locals here, queuing up again into probably my least favorite matchup with Law, other than like Lucci, and that's Doflamingo or just basically any blue deck. And Doflamingo goes ahead and just hits the absolute nuts, turn 1 Perona. That's like absolutely what you want to see. I ended up winning the dice roll, I believe, and choosing to go first. I think this was a mulliganed hand. Though it does have, a 3-5 curve. This deck list was kind of filtered out to allow for me to play on either curve. Now, obviously, even curve is a lot better for Red Purple Law, but if I want to do, take a curve from somebody or be stuck on a curve, I want to be able to be flexible on both curves. So I did end up taking the first curve off of Doflamingo just because I know that deck. I've played that deck. Deck is very good on turn with going first. And so I wanted to make sure that they didn't get to go first. And so I still have plays I can do. I could go Zoro Juro into like Queen, or if I draw like a Kid blocker or something like that, that'll set me up for a way to potentially bottom deck something. Now, one thing you'll see I'm missing from my hand is any Gordons or Raise Maxes. Basically anything that allow me to neg. Doflamingo already, set up the top of his deck. He's probably going to be dropping a lot of bodies into play here soon, and I don't really have a good way to get rid of them. So going ahead and just poking for 5. Now Doflamingo is the 2K deck. 2Ks for days, so I just assume that we're gonna get something out of him. And usually, what I recommend, when you're attacking Boa, when you're attacking Doflamingo, choose either go 5,000, so just base 5,000, or go 7,000. Just because more often than not, those decks run a ton of 2Ks, and they're less likely to counter with 1Ks, just because a lot of their 1Ks are just really strong characters that they want to be putting into play, like Jinbei or Gecko Moria. Stuff like that. And there, speaking of Jinbei right off the top, pulling in oh my gosh, a Gecko Moria. It's like I can tell the future or something. Gecko Moria is going to pick up that 2K back in hand. And so again, either swing 5s or 7s, because the 5's going to get a 2K, a 7's going to get a 2K and something else, right? If they only have 2Ks in their hand, that's likely going to get 2Ks, or they're just going to take it. And Doflamingo does have 5 life here, which already makes it a little bit of a mountain to climb for Red Purple Law. I do end up taking the first hit, seeing a Miss All Sunday, potentially triggering it here. Now, Miss All Sunday does -2 Dawn, and then she comes in and ramps you 1 Dawn. So she is like a -1 Dawn to put into play. It would set me back to 2 Dawn, and then go into 4 Dawn for the turn. I really wanted to be on that 5 Dawn just so I could like play Queen or something. With Red Purple Law, you kind of want to be like in 5 or 6 Dawn on most of your turns. That really allows you to do a lot of things. 6 Dawn's perfect because it allows you to play like a Kid blocker, which is a 5 cost, and then play a Gordon or Raise Max to bottom deck something, put something into play, get the Dawn back with Kid, yada yada yada. 4 Dawn, really awkward. You don't really want to be at 4 Dawn. Yes, you can still like play some of your threats, but it's just not as efficient. And a lot of law lists these days have been cutting the promo law, which I guess just got reprinted here in like the store tournaments. But that does, negative 2,000 on play, which is for a 4 cost, to allow you to bottom deck, a 5,000 or less. But my deck isn't playing that, so being on 4 Dawn is just not very good for me. I do have Bond Clays in hand. Bond Clay's a dozen, actually 2 Bond Clays here. I do have the Kid blocker. I do have also the Missile Sunday. Because I don't have a Raise Max or a Gordon here, I'm less incentivized to play out the Kid, just because I know that Doflamingo, will prioritize killing the Kid, right? They'll try to bottom deck it with like a Red Rock, or wait till they get to the 7 Dawn and bottom deck it with Gravity Blade. And so, I just want to kind of bait out a little bit, and I think Miss All Sunday is a pretty decent play here. I could Miss All Sunday and then draw a card because she'll ramp me 1 Dawn, and if I'm at 6 or more Dawn, she draws me a card. I could also this turn attach 1 Dawn to Zoro Juro, since I am at 3 life. When he attacks, he'll gain me an active Dawn if I'm at 3 or less life. He is a 4,000 though, so he would need 1 Dawn to be able to actually push damage through. So he kind of is like a net balance of Dawn here. If I wanted to swing with it. Now, I do decide that I just want to play the All Sunday. I want to save that Zoro Juro for maybe another turn, though I could have used it here to at least send some pressure at Jinbei, though that does go against my philosophy of not killing Jinbei, right? Jinbei, with Gecko Moria being in the deck, which can, get back any 4 cost or less Warlord, you never want to kill Jinbei, because that just gives them another opportunity to put it back in their hand with that card. So with Red Purple Law, you always just want to bottom it. You want to bottom deck Jinbei here. So because I don't have like any way to reduce his power, I'm like in this really awkward stance right now, where I just am looking at a 3 of a kind Bond Clays, And I do go ahead and just pressure. Again, don't recommend attacking Jinbei, but I have nothing else to do this turn, right? I could swing 5 at lead, get it, and they could potentially take it, or I could send 5 at Jinbei, and maybe they want to keep it going just because I do have, that Missile Sunday on board. And they do end up countering out of it using that 2k they used earlier that I already knew about that they picked up. And now I'm kind of sitting here, no, Dawn minusing in hand, 3 life, opponents at I think 5 or 4. I don't think they've actually taken a hit yet. And I'm not feeling very good right now. They are at 6 Dawn, and things are getting interesting when they're going to swing 5k with a Perona. And I really don't want to take any unnecessary hits here. Just because once I go low enough, it's going to be really hard for me to survive just because of how easily Doflamingo swarms the board, especially when I'm not dealing with it, right? So he's just going to go 5k, 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 and those Bond Clays, they're done. So I go ahead and counter with individually with 3 Bond Clays, and he attacks 7 with lead, and then revealing a Weevil, that 6k body that's going to draw him a card. Man, I really could use some power minusing right now. There is an Otama, right? Otama is a 2k that can negative 2,000 something. So like I could bottom deck the Gecko Mori, could bottom deck the Jinbei if I wanted to here. But you only get to do that once a turn. Red Purple Law only lets you bottom deck 1 thing a turn. I do manage to pick up a Gordon here. Gordon's going to negative 3,000 something for 1 Dawn. Probably going to target the Weevil here. I might try to send some of my forces in to attack some of his units, some of his characters, to try to knock them out, and get some of the pressure off myself, because he does have 5 characters on board here. Now 2 of them are Peronas, very weak 2,000 power characters, but you can again, this is One Piece. You can attach some Dawn to them and they can swing pretty heavy. So I have to be a little concerned here. I do have the Kid in hand. I am at 8 Dawn, which is like kind of crazy to think about when you play Red Purple Law. At least in the 07 meta, having 8 Dawn is very rare, but that also just means I'm like in a bad spot, right? If you have a lot of Dawn with Red Purple Law, you're doing one of 2 things. You're either in a really good spot because you've been removing and playing out things that ramp you Dawn, and you're like feeling real good, right? You got a full board, full Dawn, like that's like power mode. You are gonna win the game likely. Or you're in the other situation like I am, where you have a bunch of Dawn and they have a full board across from you because you just haven't seen any of your minusing. So here, like I said earlier, I'm just going to attach 1 to Zoroduro. Zoroduro's going to swing. He's going to ramp me 1 because I'm at 3 or less life. So it's just a free Dawn, and just a 5k swing. I think I am just sending that at lead here. He is going to take it. And then that was the first hit. Yep, looks like the opponent's at 4 life here. I'm more of a fan of art on sleeves, especially with One Piece. It's a lot easier for you to tell how much life your opponent has. Versus like, Dragon Shields or anything like solid. So I always recommend having art on the sleeves because it makes it very easy to show. Right now I'm at 2 life because you see 2 Reijus, right? So we're gonna again send 5 at lead. I'm trying to think what I would do with Solid Sunday. So here again, swinging 5s or 7s. We're gonna send a 7 here at Gecko Moria just to try to handle their board. They could use a 2k 1k to get out of it, but they could also just let it go, and that's one less pressure on my side. I do manage to leave 6 Dawn up here. That allows me to play the Kid blocker and then Gordon, and then probably bottom deck the Weevil here. So just thinking, opponents, Doflamingo's thinking here if they want to save Gecko, just because that is a lot of pressure, right? My hand it's starting to fall a little bit. I did counter with 3 cards last turn, and this turn I'm going to be playing at least 2 to 3 cards. So my hand is definitely getting a lot smaller. But yeah, this is about to get even harder potentially once we get, because they just had 6 Dawn, they're about to go to 8 Dawn. That's when they can start Gravity Blading me, and Gravity Blade, man, that card is so good against Red Purple Law, or just against any deck that swarms the board with like medium to small bodies, and I will just cry, if that happens. So he does counter out of it, giving me 3k, a Jinbei, and a 2k, and I'm just gonna play out Kid. And then I'm going to rest that 1 Dawn and play out the Gordon. And we're going to minus on the Weevil. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to clear any more of his board this turn. Where he's also, still sitting at 4 life. So I'm still like not in a good spot this game. Just not seeing a lot of my power reduction. Was on a mulligan. I am going to -3 again. And we're going to bottom deck that Weevil. and then it's going to let me play a 4 cost or less out of my hand. I'm eyeballing that law, and this is what I would call my first misplay of the game. I had that law in my hand, and my opponent used, what, 2 cards to get out of it? I think he was at, I think he's right now sitting at 4 cards. Is he sitting at 4 cards in hand? I cannot tell. If he's sitting at 4 cards in hand, then it didn't matter. It wasn't a misplay because he was at 6 cards in hand, and the law cares about being at 7. I'd assume I was probably cognizant of that, so I guess it didn't really matter. But if the opponent was at 7 cards in hand, and I did swing into the Gecko Moria, and he did counter out of it with 2 cards, that would have took him off 7 cards in hand, allowing me not to activate Law's ability. I do not put those in the right section there. I think that was a misplay on my side. I was so used to playing against Lucci, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Red Purple Law does not have any ways to recur, but that is talking about a potential misplay into an actual like board state misrepresentation here. I might catch it at some point, but he does bottom deck both my Law and my Kid blockers, just completely like eradicating what I did last turn, and that's why Gravity Blade is so good. And then he's just gonna swing 6. I think he's sending 6 at lead here, and I'm debating if I wanted to counter out of it here with only 3 cards in hand. And that Otama, it's dual purpose. That's not just a 2k counter. That's something that can help take out this Jinbei next turn. So I might consider keeping that, but I'm scared to go to 1, right? He's still got a Doflamingo, two Peronas, and I've got 1 blocker in hand. So I'm a little fearful here. I am really contemplating whether or not what I want. No, it actually hits the All Sunday. So I was thinking, do I want to counter out and then he just attacks the All Sunday again? That goes my whole hand trying to save All Sunday, or do I just let All Sunday go and keep those 2 cards in my hand? And then here he goes. It looks like he's going to go 5 into Zoro, just trying to wipe my board. And I just snap counter that. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have countered that, and I should have just let it die. That way, this turn, I could have played a Queen and then bottom decked and played a Kid and Killer or something. And so he would have been left with 2 Peronas on board and nothing else. And I would have had a Queen and a Kid and Killer in play, but I would have also been like at 1 card in hand. I do manage to draw a Sanji here, so I do have a 2k as well as a blocker that can be played pretty cheaply. We're going to just start out with a Queen. I'm trying to look for power or power reduction. I countered with that Otama, and that really hurt me. And I managed to draw a Kid and Killer and a Reiju. Reiju, I do have enough Dawn here to play it and draw 2 more additional cards because I am at even or lesser Dawn than my opponent, and I have 4 or 5 or less cards in hand. Queen, finishing Queen's ability, she does draw me 2, or he draws me 2, and then I discard a card. I'm looking to discard the Sanji here. This is, I think, another mistake. I think this does end up hurting me in the long game here. Just because I really don't have any counter in hand. I'm hoping, like, part of me is hoping that this Reiju just kind of finds me what I need, right? Reiju drawing me 2 here, but man, yeah, pitching the Sanji, kind of putting a lot of pressure on keeping the Kid and Killers in hand. But at this part of the game, Doflamingo's still at 4 life, right? It has 5 cards in hand, I think. It's still not looking very good for me. We're gonna go ahead and I think this was a misplay here. I instead, play the Reiju out instead of attaching 1 Dawn to Zorojuro and then attacking into Jinbei with Zorojuro just to try to clear board. So now I only have 1 attack into Jinbei. So if they just counter out of it, that Jinbei lives, and then I'm feeling threatened yet again. So we draw 2. We draw 2 Zorojuros. That's it again. My deck is trying to tell me something. My deck is telling me, why didn't you attach 1 Dawn to that Zorojuro? I'm gonna just show you 2 more Zorojuros so you can make sure you read the text of the card. But now, I don't only have 1 attacker, right? That Zorojuro's a 4K. Now I'm just thinking, how do I win this game? And I'm honestly, like, with not a lot of counter in hand, I am afraid of going to 0 or dying next turn. So I do end up attacking into the Jinbei, and here he gives me a 2k. This is that situation where if I had attached to Dawn to Zorojuro, attacked, and then Zorojuro's got me an active Dawn, I could have at least sent 2 attacks into Jinbei to ensure that maybe I either get 2 cards out of hand or Jinbei, is defeated, right? And now, I am sitting in this weird situation where if they bottom deck my Queen, right, I am just like really, really struggling here. Again, not a lot of counter in hand. I've got 2 Kid and Killers and 2 Zorojuros, so I've got a maximum of 2k in hand. And he does exactly what I didn't want him to do. He does bottom deck. He red rocks my queen. So there goes my blocker, right? And now he's still got 4 Dawn up, and we're probably going to see him splitting some Dawn here and doing some swings, just going lead. So he's going to start with, it looks like a 7k lead, potentially swing. I do not have enough to count out of that, so I'm going to have to take that hit. This is where, again, like me discarding that Sanji and keeping 2 Kitten Killers maybe was a mistake here. You know, if I was further along in game, if you know, Doflamingo was at, 2, 3 life, right, maybe I would feel a little more, it'd be a little better, more justifiable to have the Kitten Killers in hand, just because Kitten Killer gets the plus 2,000 when attacking if your opponent's at 2 or less life, right? But because Doflamingo's still at 4 life, like, those Kitten Killers are kind of just like 5Ks, right? 5K rushers, and that doesn't feel very good. So he is going to swing 7k, then he's going to go 6k. I really do not want to go to 1 here, and I will counter out with my 2 Zorojuros, taking me up to 7. All right, Doflamingo is going to, I believe, going to pass the turn. He also did put a body into play there, that another Edward Weevil. That's just a 5,000, but it does have an effect as well. Not usually seen in Doflamingo builds, but hey, it's another target, right? I do have 3 Kitten Killers in hand and a kid blocker. This is not feeling very good. Those Kitten Killers would, they can't attack for 7 right now, because I feel like if I just pressure life here, it's likely he's just going to counter out of it, and I'm not going to get the value, right? I could, one potential play line here, just because I'm at 10 Dawn here, that Zorojuro is now no longer going to be able to get me, refresh me a Dawn. So I could send like 5 lead again, and then like play the kid blocker, and then bottom deck like a Perona, and then get a Dawn back, and then swing 5 again with Zorojuro, or bottom deck put out. I don't know. There's a lot of things. I think I should have played the kid. I should have then attached 1 to Zorojuro and attacked with it, and then I would have had forward. I would have had a little bit more Dawn to play with here. But no, I instead go to the board. There was like potentially a way for me to deal a lot of damage here with the 3 Kitten Killers in hand. So you get to attach 1, go 5 lead, just 5 at lead. That either gets 3 cards in hand or he takes life, and if he takes at least 2 life, I have 2 Kitten Killers, right? And those 2 Kitten Killers could potentially either get him even lower, or potentially handle his board. So I am going to -3. We're going to remove that, and I think we're just going to put a Kitten Killer here. That Kitten Killer is only attacking for 5k here. We're going to get Dawn back. And I believe I'm just going to send 5 at the Weevil, right? I think I've already kind of potentially think that maybe he doesn't have a lot of counter in hand, or he's trying to keep his hand going. I think as soon as he let the Jinbei go immediately, I maybe should have potentially, sussed out that maybe he doesn't have any counter in hand. So we're going to send 7. He's just going to take it. He's going to send him down to, he's still, I think I could have just sent 5 there, right? If he really didn't counter anything, and he hits a trigger and bottom decks my kid. Oh man, that feels so bad. And if I had, sequenced a little bit better, right, and gone face, he potentially would have taken that hit, bottom deck something else I didn't care about, and then I could have played the kid, and then kept pressuring, right? If I could get him down to 2, the second Kitten Killer, the first and second Kitten Killer could have potentially dealt lethal damage. But because my kid's gone, I'm now staring at a Perona and a Doflamingo, and I'm at 1 life with like no counter in hand. He can just split his Dawn between both, and I'm just dead. So I think like that hitting that trigger definitely hurt me a lot, right? Bottom decking my kid, but I could have also just played this turn a lot differently. He did end up having a 2k in hand. He does not want to go any lower. I think he does suss out another Kitten Killer. So maybe my plan of hitting him that much maybe didn't matter, but I one of the things I often forget about going against decks that aren't yellow is triggers, right? Yellow is the king of triggers, and usually I will play around yellow triggers, but I am less likely to play around other colors triggers just because they have a lot less cards with trigger on them, so they don't happen as often. But again, opponent here splitting it up. swinging 7 with Perona, 10 with lead, and I have nothing in hand, no blockers, no nothing. If I had that kid blocker, they wouldn't have been able to do that play, and maybe I would have been able to stabilize a little bit here with another kid blocker and the kid and killer in hand. But unfortunately, we did lose that game due to some sequencing on my side, and also just my hand that I was given after the mulligan just was not very good. And Doflamingo saw 2 Peronas. Right, Doflamingo revealing their hand here, saying that they had 1K counter in hand at that point. So yeah, just unfortunate beat. But yeah, other than that, we're gonna move in the next video. We'll move on to round number 4 here, one last game here. Currently X and 1, 2 and 1 in this event, but we'll see you next time.